process. You gotta bring the 2 over here, and you do this little box thing, and then you have to bring down all the coefficients like 4, 5, -5, x, and -8. 4, -5, +1, and -8. And then you draw a line. These are the coefficients. So what you do is bring down the 4, and then you have to multiply by 2, which will give you 8. And then you have to add -5 and 8, which will give you 3. When you multiply 2 and 3, give you 6. And then you add it and give you 7. And then you multiply 7 and 2, which will give you 14. And then when you add 14 and 8, it'll give you 6. And 6 is the remainder. Okay. That's it for the first one. Pretty much.
Okay. So I'm going to do solving by clearing equations. And today I'm going to use this equation. And to start off, we don't like working with fractions. So we have to eliminate the denominator of this fraction. And to do so, you multiply x to the entire thing because it's the least common. And then you multiply x on this side, x here, and x here, because when you do to one side, you do to the other. And then that gives you x squared plus 3 equals 4x. The next step is you have to move over the 4x to this side to make everything equal to 0. So you have x2 minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Then what you do is you factor. And to factor the x and the x, and then to get the 2 signs, you bring down the first sign, which is a negative, and then you multiply a negative and a positive, which be a negative, and then you have to get a number, and when you multiply it, it equals 3, and when you add it, it equals -4. So then those 2 numbers would be -1 and -3. Then to get your final solution, you make both of these equal to 0. That's x minus 1 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And the solution to this, if you solve it, would be x equals +1, x equals +3. And this is your solution. Okay, so I'm going to do solving a rational equation. And just like the previous example, to eliminate the denominators to make it easier to work with, you have to multiply to the equation x minus 4, but that's already equal to 0, so you leave that at that. And what you do is x minus 4, and you're multiplying x plus 1 over x minus 4, and you multiply x minus 4 equal to 0. And then this gets eliminated, this cancels out. Then what you do is distributive property, and it makes it x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals to 0. And what you have now is a quadratic form, so then which is ax2 plus bx plus c equal to 0. And then, since you see it all goes together, so now what you do is, to solve this, you use, since this is in quadratic form, you use a quadratic formula, which is x equals -b square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Then what you do is you just plug in the numbers. So then you have negative, right here you have -4 with a -b, so it cancels out, making it +4 square root and b -4 squared minus 4, then a would be x, which is 1, and then times c, which is 1, over 2, and then a, which was 1, to the quadratic formula. You simplify the quadratic formula, which will give you x equals you can still simplify it. So it's 2 plus minus and equal 3. You can leave your answer like that, or what you can do is just solve it. And then first you do 2 plus square root of 3, which will give you x equals 3.732. And then you do the same but subtraction. 2 minus square root of 3 will give you x equals 0.267. And that's your answer.
Okay, so what I'm going to be teaching is how to write an equation using linear functions. And with this given information, the first thing you have to do is find the slope using the slope formula, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you want, you can write down what each of the numbers are so you won't get confused. You can take that out. So then you plug in the numbers, which is 4 minus negative 1 over 2 minus negative 5. When you multiply these two negatives, it's a positive, so two negatives are a positive. So your answer would be 5 over 7. That's your slope. Then when you finally figure out your slope, you have to use the point slope formula, which is you plug in the numbers, the y stays by itself, minus negative 1 equals m is the slope, the x stays by itself, and then minus negative 5. This becomes a positive. And this, you do a distributive property. So you multiply 5 over 7 times x, and then 5 over 7 times positive 5. So when you multiply these two, you will get 25 over 7. And then you have to, the y has to stay by itself, so you have to subtract 1 from each side, which gives you 5 over 7x plus 18 over 7. And this is the function notation formula. Your final answer has to be in this form. So here we're going to find the vertex and the axis of a quadratic function. So first we have to put this function into a quadratic form. So what we have to do is just switch these two around, because the quadratic form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So once you have it like that, you have to use this formula, and you plug in the numbers. So it'll be 6 over 2 times 5, which is 8. And then when you solve, you get 6 over 10. And you can simplify both of them by 2. So it'll be 3 over 5. That is your axis. So after here, we substitute in the original formula the x with 3 over 5. So you'll get 5 times 3 over 5 squared minus 6 times 3 over 5 plus 4. And when you solve that, you will get 9 over 5 minus 18 over 5 vertex, you have to write it in vertex form. And the formula is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. That's the vertex form. So basically all you have to do is substitute the letters with the numbers, which is f of x. A in the original equation was 5 times x, and h is 3 over 5 squared plus k, which was your other point, 11 over 5. And that is your final answer.
Done. We are done. We are done. We are done. We are done.